The movie, the movie countdown.
I think we're live. So technically, it's us now. We got also one user with us. Hi, Danielle and Wade. Uh, so now
Good
we're
to see
live, and
you.
I'm happy to have you here. I'm gonna do the full introduction in a couple of minutes. But yeah, I asked you, Wade, earlier just to share a little bit with AWS news. What can you tell us? What's going on?
So we're going to be talking about tooling today, and I thought about let's have some news around that. And AI is everything what everyone's talking about, and the hottest trend in AI is the MCP servers, right? The Model Context Protocol. So how do we
Hmm.
release these large language models out into the wild and then give them additional information that's specific to the domain they're looking at? So we just released our billing and cost management MCP server last month at AWS. And so that's going to help people to use those large language models to query their cost and usage data, and get information from tools like that we're going to be talking about: Cost Explorer, Cost Optimization Hub, and alike.
Very cool. That's drawing from like cost and usage report only, or it's also drawing from like cost optimization hub and the savings recommendations.
Other tools as well, like compute optimizer, anomaly detection, cost optimization hub. So some of those ones that were with it at launch, is what it's going to be able to pull from. So that's going to help our users, especially those who maybe don't want to be in the console and they want to just write a query, or maybe folks who don't feel comfortable writing queries themselves, and want the AI to do it for them. This is going to give that AI additional contextual information. And on that note as well, I just want to mention that we do also have Amazon Q, which is our own AI chatbot that you can utilize to get your cost and usage information from as well. And it already has some of that information about AWS on there as well.
Wait a minute. So just to for me to understand, how do you differentiate Q from the new MCP service?
Yeah, good question. So Q, you can think of that, that's our own model that we're using, and we do deploy Q throughout some of the AWS stack in different ways, including having it available as a chatbot in the console. And what the new Model Context Protocol, or MCP server is it's basically a bunch of contextual information for other large language models to then feed off
Mm.
of, so that they can better query the information or better search for the information within AWS tools like Cost Explorer or Compute Optimizer. So it's basically our way of making all those other AI models a lot smarter on the AWS data so that they can return better results for their users.
Actually, that's fantastic. And do you see a lot of demand, people actually using it? Do you actually see the amount of usage, or it's just getting started and people testing the water?
We just released it last month. Definitely, I know that my team's very excited about it. We've been working with a lot of MCP servers on the optics team, in general, and so we're definitely taking advantage of it. I think it's probably a little early for us to know how the rest of our AWS customers are taking advantage of it, but definitely looking forward to talking to our customers more about it. Also at reInvent, which is also some news that's coming up in a few months here, starting the first week of December.
Yeah. I'd be interested to hear who you think the uh, ideal stakeholder, the ideal user of the LLM querying your cost via LLM. Because I imagine there's kind of a hardcore FinOps user that knows all the dimensions in the cur and actually prefers just kind of clicking through either Cost Explorer or a tool like Finout to get to the data. But then there's other people who aren't as familiar with the cur and who aren't as familiar with navigating analytics tools, and they'll be really excited about the chat interface. So based on kind of rolling it out now so far, what do you think is the main stakeholders that are going to be most excited about this?
When I personally think about it, I definitely think it's that second persona you mentioned, the developer persona, the person who doesn't like doing click ops. I often hear that from our
Right,
developers that, hey, I like to write code. I don't want to be in the
What's
console. I want to get
ClickOps?
it
right.
programmatic.
Sorry.
Yeah, click ops of just being clicking it in the console versus, like programmatically getting it via API. Yes, a slang term there from our developer community.
Okay, I thought it was me, but
Yeah.
happy to know. Okay, so it's the time we're gonna. So first of all, hi everybody again. Um, we have with us Wade and Danielle. I'm going to do a proper introduction in 2 minutes. We're going to give a little bit more time for people to jump in. We literally wait for 1 more minute before we start the webinar. What we talked about right now is just some innovation regarding AI adoption inside AWS and the differences between MCP and the regular queue model AWS uses. Wade is just a bank of knowledge and there's so much to learn. I'm hopefully you'll find this webinar insightful and enjoy it as much as we had creating it. In literally 30 seconds, I'm going to shut up and let the important people do all the talking. But I see already we have with us a nice amount of people, and people keep adding up. I'll say it again, and also a reminder to Danielle and Wade to, from time to time, take a breather, ask the space if there's any questions, and if everybody wants to ask anything, please feel free to put it on the chat. I see now that already we have something, and later on in the end, there's also going to be Q&A to ask Wade and Danielle any more questions, so you can also wait. So now officially, hi everybody, welcome to Finouts and AWS webinar about the native cost optimization of AWS and the evolution of the tools. So how we got from how much are we spending on the cloud and what's going on into super granular understanding of subservices optimization and how AWS is truly evolved during those years. We have with us, Danielle, if you can move to the next slide, please, 2 juggernauts of the industry, in the lack of a better term. We have with us Daniele. He's been in the company at Finout for a couple of years. He had his own company before that, CloudFlood, which did an amazing job. And also we have Wade, that is a senior FinOps success manager. They're both are gonna talk and go a little bit more in depth into all of those aspects. Again, as I said before, feel free to reach out to ask questions. There's a QA section in the end, but also if something comes up, this is a free-flowing conversation. It's not a hardcore lecture that we need to breeze through. We are all in this together in a community. Daniele, I'll leave you the floor. Enjoy.
Great. Thank you, y'all. We've been, I've really enjoyed working with Wade in the weeks leading up to this, chatting and talking about what could be most valuable for you folks. And so we're going to try and kind of give a high level overview of things and talk through what FinOps practitioners can do, actionable advice for different stages, and also get into some details and some actual use cases and stories. So Wade is going to kick us off with kind of contextualizing AWS's experience in cloud cost optimization. And he's the best person to provide this context, having been doing FinOps at AWS before FinOps existed. So I'll hand it to you, Wade.
Yeah, thanks, Daniele. So we can just kind of walk through my journey of being at AWS and some of the tools that I've seen us release, and just want to preface this that this might not be in a completely exhaustive list of everything. We're just kind of picking some of the favorites here that we want to talk about and the trends that we saw over the years. So let's just kind of start in 2017. What was the customers thinking about? And back in 2017, a lot of lift and shifts were going on to the cloud. A lot of people moving to the cloud for the first time, doesn't really fully understand the whole FinOps idea yet. FinOps isn't even really a big discussion point in the industry. And so mostly people are worried about reserved instances, and we don't even have savings plans at this point. And we do have AWS budgets and alerts, and there's some basic functionality within that as well. But really, it's just folks buying RIs, set it and forget it. A lot of people kind of thinking of the cloud almost like a data center in the cloud at this point. Not that we liked thinking about it. That was just the mindset a lot of people had. Buy a 3-year reserved instance all up front, just like they were buying a stack in the data center, right? Not really thinking much of it. But we heard a lot about right sizing at this time, and we just didn't have the proper tools to help our customers understand what size of instance should they be on. And that's where we move into 2019, where we get Compute Optimizer. And Compute Optimizer in 2019 is definitely not the Compute Optimizer we have now. There's a lot more basic and didn't have as many features like RDS. optimization yet in it, but it was moving in the direction of trying to provide data to our customers to have them make the right decisions. If you think about RIs, it's a really easy decision process. Like, if it's going to save us money, most of the time we buy it. With right sizing, we're balancing those trade-offs, right, a lot more. And so people need to trust that data. And you're going to see a theme out here trying to build trust with the customers through data. And so kind of moving into 2020, everyone remembers that cost was a big concern in 2020 because we were seeing a lot more cloud adoption when everyone being virtual, and so everyone wanted to worry about cost. And so we roll out features like anomaly detection to help automatically alert people, and then cost categories to help group costs, clean up data tag syntax, other things like that. I just got off a call with one of my customers. We're talking about implementing cost categories. And so really like that product in ways that we can help group our costs. This customer wants to understand what's all of our AI spend. And I said, let's create a cost category. We'll map all the AI accounts to there, and any AI workloads via tags, we can also map to there and just have one distinction for AI spend without the whole company through a cost category. Okay, moving into 2021, we understand that customers want to have more customizability over this cost and usage data. And so we released a basically free to use cost intelligence dashboards, or kudos dashboards, as you might have heard about it at the time. And so this is a quick site dashboard that we have free templates out there that you can deploy, and then you can visualize your cost and usage data in QuickSight that way. And so you can do things that are more customizable that you wouldn't be able to do in Cost Explorer here. And then we also have QuickSight dashboards that are available for Microsoft, Google. We have specialized ones like a KPI dashboard. So we're constantly working on that and developing new ones over time. Okay, so moving into 2022, people are really starting to think about optimization and building in their practice. FinOps foundation is really running strong at this point. And so we're starting to see a lot of people wanting to go deeper, right? Think about in 2017 was all RIs. Now we wanted to not just do right sizing, we wanted to go service level optimization and go a lot deeper. And so we released a new UI for Cost Explorer. We're getting a lot more usage there. And we released that enterprise billing product called Billing Conductor that allows people to customize billing views and even invoice separate groups with their own AWS invoice if they have like different lines of business within a company. And then moving into 2023, we released Cost Optimization Hub. And again, that theme of trying to put the data into the hands of the users, there's so many different optimization levers that we can pull now throughout these different tools that we've been releasing. Cost Optimization Hub is the aggregator of all that data. And so it's one place where you can go to look at all of your opportunities and try to balance the trade-offs. Do I want to right size, or do I want to go buy a reservation? So it's going to continue to add to Cost Optimization Hub. As we add new recommendation tools, they'll be available in Cost Optimization Hub over the time as well. And then also we released CUR 2.0, which is in our data exports. So customers just wanted to get little bits and pieces of the cost and usage report and don't want all those petabytes of data over time, then they can just get little pieces of it with the data exports in CUR 2.0. Okay, and then finally moving into 2024, had a lot of big releases last year. A lot of these came out around reInvent time. The authenticated AWS pricing calculator. People were always telling us, we want to be able to model our costs better. We want to look at what we're existing spending, and then we want to make modifications to it and see how much we could save or how much that will cost. And that's what the authentic pricing calculator does. It even takes into account any savings plans or other discounts that you might be on with that current workload. And then we also have retroactive cost allocation tagging. So before, if you put a tag in place, it was only moving forward. And now we're actually able to retroactively apply that tag moving backwards, which is really nice and helpful for aggregating our costs and grouping it by business unit, things like that. And then finally, a really big hitter that everyone was asking for. Everyone's been asking us since 2017, how can I customize my savings plans recommendations or reserved instance recommendations back in the day? It used to be pretty much for that whole time, 2017 to 2024, a lot of my time was spent helping customers navigate what's the recommendation in the console, and then what should they actually buy. And that's why we came out with Savings Plan Analyzer. It allows you to customize those recommendations, play with different numbers, see how it affects your coverage and savings, and then make that right decision for you. So really excited about Savings Plan Analyzer, and we've actually continued to release additional features for that this year.
Amazing. It's really cool to see all this in one place and understand the trajectory and hear your kind of historical context of what was going on at the time that motivated these things. The lift and shift, you need budgets when you do that, and then costs are spiking. So you need the anomaly detection. I always love introducing customers to a native tool when it's exactly what they need. They articulate they need something, and then I can suggest it, like retroactive cost allocation tagging. That's one that it's just always gets a lot of positive feedback because it's something that is very intuitive for people, and they want it. And AWS released it, and it's exactly meets the use case. Now we want to kind of walk through different phases of people in optimization, and specifically hear from you, Wade, in terms of what you see people focusing on during different stages. And I can share what I've seen, what we've seen at Finout. You mentioned such a broad range of tools, from budgeting and being able to do kind of a chargeback and anomaly detection, creating alerts and rate optimization and usage optimization. I'd be interested to hear what you recommend when you kind of are coming out for someone comes to you and says, hey, our cloud bill has creeped up and we have not done any FinOps yet. What's kind of your advice on where to get started?
Yeah, so going into the crawl, walk, run of our FinOps foundation model. So folks that are in the
Exactly.
crawl stage, they're probably feeling really overwhelmed because
Yeah.
now there's all this information out there for FinOps. Back in 2017, there was a lot less information, and so maybe you just kind of did what you could. But now you're trying
Yeah.
to figure out, where do I even start? And so
Yeah.
we need to identify those opportunities. And where I'd say we want to start is some kind of measurement and accountability. And so measurement being, what's our cloud spend, and who does that belong to? And then that gets into the accountability, having people take ownership over that spend in the cloud, and have some amount of goals to try to make it efficient. We don't have to drive every single possible dollar out of our cloud spend, but we need some kind of accountability that says, as a team that owns this cloud spend, I'm going to try and do the best to make it as efficient as possible. And so that's an ideal state, right? In the crawl, that people could actually take that accountability. What's the reality is, most time we have a single FinOps persona, and they're going around to the development teams and they're trying to get buy-in, and they're probably hearing a lot of, hey, I'm building applications, I don't want to worry about the cost, or whatever other thing that they'll say to that finance persona, right? And so I think, kind of bringing it back to the tools, what are the tools that we wanted to be looking at here? It's going to be Cost Explorer or some other type of cost visualization tool. Like Finout, has tools. We have the cost and usage dashboards that we mentioned as well. So whatever it's going to be, we want to decide on what that tool is, and then we want to standardize around that. And so that means that people are going to have access to it, and that they're going to have some amount of training about it too. So that way, ideally, if I'm an engineer and I'm deploying a cloud resource, I'd have some mechanism, whether it's Cost Explorer, whether it's a third-party tool, or whether it's a dashboard, to see what that cost is. And if I make a change, then I can maybe see that associated change, right? And that's the ownership.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And one of the things that we see is that different FinOps teams at different companies have a different degree of ability to actually make changes in the cloud. And that kind of informs where they might want to get started. Like, some FinOps practitioners don't have right access to any accounts, and therefore they can't even go and act on a right sizing recommendation. Some they do to dev and test workloads, but not prod workloads. And so oftentimes we see, and we suggest kind of tackle low-hanging fruit that you can to get some quick wins, and that can also help create an internal motivation at the company to pursue and invest in FinOps if you can show some quick wins. And so maybe that means the FinOps practitioner going and tackling things in dev and test workloads themselves, or doing rate optimization centrally, which is not going to affect performance of anything, of any distributed teams. What do you see? Do you see practitioners mostly have the ability to roll up their sleeves and get stuff done, or do you see practitioners that are mostly in a position where they don't have the ability to get stuff done themselves and they really need to kind of work through distributed engineering teams?
I've definitely seen more of the latter, and I think that's probably better to some degree because our FinOps personas, we don't necessarily want them messing around in the production environments
Yeah.
because they could get themselves in trouble. I don't want to be in a production environment myself, trying to
Yeah.
make changes or anything like that. So we definitely want to work with the product teams or development teams, whatever we want to call it. I was just working with one of my customers, and they were looking to get information though on like bucket policies for S3. What kind of lifecycle policies do we have? So I do think it
Yeah.
can be nice to have read access to some of that stuff though. So that way they can
Yeah.
kind of check the policies and make recommendations, and we don't have to ask the service team to go say, hey, what policies do you have on this
Do
bucket
the
so I can help you?
analytics that inform it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, let's try to make the decision. And then you were talking about action, Danielle, and so that's what I want to think about too, is how can we act in this stage? And you mentioned
Yeah.
rate optimization. I think that's a great first step, although we don't want to go
Yeah.
reserve 100% of what we're using right now.
Right.
And just to clarify for the audience, when we're talking rate optimization, we're talking about buying commitment-based discounts like savings plans or reserved instances. And so here in the crawl stage, we're probably using some compute. Let's go ahead and look at some compute savings plans, and whatever is being recommended at the console, maybe buy like a third of that or like half of that, or maybe even a quarter of it, whatever it is. And then, like you said, that's a quick win. We can show leadership,
Yeah.
hey, here's the savings that we got from this, and they get some more motivation and investment to do some more.
100%. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And to your point, you don't want to buy 100% savings plan before you've gone and kind of trimmed the fat, and so it's kind of a question of deciding what that line is to show the quick wins early on. Um, Great. So we've gone through. I think that's great advice that you would have for an initial customer that approaches you. They've started to familiarize themselves with some visibility. Maybe started doing some tags and some retroactive tagging. What is your advice as someone starts to gain more confidence in FinOps and the walk stage? And I'll ask a very specific question, which is, how do you tell customers to think about showback versus chargeback? Because that's a concept that I see customers struggling with, and a lot of companies are struggling with whether it's worth the organizational investment to actually pursue a more strict showback chargeback or not. So I'd love to hear your perspective and what you see customers doing.
Yeah, awesome. So I love that we're bringing up showback versus chargeback, and I'll bring it right back to that. But at this stage is where I think we really want to start programmatizing our FinOps practice, because we're probably starting to see some pockets of wins here and there. And what we need to do is share that success across the business. And customers ask me all the time, every single day I have a customer saying, tell me about someone that's just like me, that's doing what I want to do. There's no one just like you that that's outside of your business.
Yeah.
So we have people that are inside your business that are just like you, and we need to learn from them, right? So it's the FinOps team's role to find that success, like who's really doing good at Spot. Okay, have them do a roadshow across all the other business units on how they're using Spot,
Yeah.
and then teach them how to do it specifically for that company and their practices, right? And then
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that brings us to your thing, chargeback and showback. How do we create motivation around wanting to do these things? Well, we need to create that ownership that we were trying to create in the first step. And the way that we ultimately do that is we got to make people responsible for the cost. And then this is a debate, showback versus chargeback. Are we going to get motivation from a showback? Or are we going to have leadership just saying, well, we don't actually pay for that budget, so like I don't really care at the end of the day? Because think about how many responsibilities you've been shouldered with in the last 6 months. There's probably been people that have
Right.
left your business, and then there's probably been leadership saying we're not going to backfill those because we're going to like automate that with AI, and so everyone's doing more with less right now.
Yeah.
And so we can't possibly take on additional scope unless it's like critical, and the way
Yeah.
to we got to measure it to get results, right? So I'm a favor of the chargeback, but I think that some people have maybe very frugal culture, and they can do
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
showback.
And I mean, you're 100% right that there's an organizational cost, an organizational bandwidth cost to doing chargeback, and people already have a lot on their plate. It's an interesting we get asked all the time, should we do chargeback or showback? And it's like you said, there's no one like you. It depends on a lot of factors. Do you have kind of a litmus test in your mind, or something that you would use to help guide people? Maybe it's based on how much they're spending, or maybe it's based on whether they have a mature enough FP&A team that knows cloud a little bit. Do you have kind of a litmus test in your head that you use when advising a customer on whether to go for chargeback or not?
I'm thinking about, FP&A, like you said, and then also what tooling are they using? Because if we're going to need to
Yeah.
like smooth and spread and redistribute the cost, then what tool are we using for that? Ideally, if we're redistributing cost, then we have a way for our end users to see how that's being redistributed. And so that kind of plays into the first stage of like, what tool are we
Yeah.
using in the cloud? If everyone's in Cost Explorer, there's
100%.
hard to kind of redistribute the cost like that and
Yeah.
still be able to see it in the end state that people will be charged. And then one more thing I'll mention is industry. And so we have, industries that like maybe healthcare, life sciences, or maybe some of our other science-based industries where you have projects, research projects,
Yeah.
and you can't spend outside of that, right? And so
Yeah.
we don't want people using each other's grants, and that's where it can become really important to do the chargeback.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Some industries are kind of inherently more budget conscious. Yeah, the breaking up, peanut buttering those shared costs. That's actually where we see a lot of customers that are turning towards tools like Finout that have features that help you do reallocation of shared costs. In our case, it's called virtual tags, and that's exactly where a platform can be helpful. Is like, hey, we need to do this shared cost based on how much each team spends, and this one based on number of reads to the database, and this one is a fixed percentage. And so that's, we're excited to hear about that complexity, but you're right that it's a big complexity jump in terms of actually adopting chargeback in a defensible way.
Yeah. And let's take one use case there too that's really common that we've been touching on is savings plans. And so
Yeah,
compute savings plans, they're going to float around and float to the instance with the biggest discount percentage first, right?
yeah,
And so it's beneficial to customers to just buy those savings plans at the payer level, let them float where they may, and they're always getting the biggest discount that they can with their
yeah,
money. But then, of course, then some people might be getting the discount 1 hour and not getting another hour, and we want to maybe redistribute that discount more
right.
evenly and fairly, equitably, you could say, across. And so we find customers struggle with that a lot. They're balancing like, do I redistribute the discount, or do I try and force the savings plans to go where I want them? And I'd
Totally.
rather
Or
see them redistribute.
yeah, distribute the savings, or just do chargeback with list price, because then it's going to be normalized across everyone. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Um, Great. So we're crawling, we're walking, and now we want to start running. We want to start, tracking our cost efficiency. We want to start being more proactive and get a longer line of sight into what's coming. What do you recommend to customers that have gone through the walk phase that you just discussed, and they're kind of mature enough to consider some more advanced topics?
Yeah, so we've been building a lot of content around the run customers lately because, like you said, those early stages is low hanging fruit, and so at this run stage, we probably cultivated all the low hanging fruit that
Right.
we have, so that at our disposal, right? So how do we get more savings? What we're going to need to do here is be really focused and probably drive some initiatives. And then also that same thing I've been mentioning is we're driving more ownership and accountability to the application level, because a lot of this stuff that we're going to do here is probably re-architecting and going to require engineering hours, and we're going to need to balance that against other development projects that we have in the pipeline. So
Yeah.
we need to also focus heavily on culture here. And that's what I've been mentioning that we're developing internally at the optics team. We've been partnering with the Frugal Architect to create a FinHack, which is like a hackathon style, 1 day immersive event where we can get hands-on keyboard and we can teach new skills to our engineers in a way that they want to learn it, builder to builder. So we're not talking, we used to do these FinHacks and we still do them that are like a little more finance focused, trying to identify savings.
Yeah.
This new one that we have with the Frugal Architect is all about trying to identify culture changes within our engineers, not trying to like maybe save $1 today, but maybe trying to like change the way we think in the future. Um, and
Culture. Very
and so
cool.
that's what we want to do here. Don't focus as much on the dollar savings today. Focus more on like strategy stuff going forward. Like maybe
Yeah.
here's one that we've been working on with another customer is, can we switch to Graviton on all our managed services? If it makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's great. I love that the fin what'd you call it? Hack day? Fin hack?
FinHack, yeah, like a financial
Fin hack.
hackathon, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. We do something similar with kind of FinOps Fun Day when we have customers that are trying to focus on usage optimization. I mean, everything you said definitely resonates with what we see as well. You know, it feels like there's a jump from uh, reactive firefighting in the crawl and the walk, and kind of like waiting until a bunch of savings waste builds up and then tackling it periodically. And then the more mature is about creating kind of a process like you described, in a culture where there's kind of a culture of eliminating waste on an ongoing basis and a culture of just building efficiently up front. So that's really, really helpful. You know, unit economics, it's talked about a lot. And it's talked about a lot. It's something that kind of varies from different companies, whether it's gaming companies looking at cost per hour, or rideshare companies like Lyft looking at cost per ride. I'd be interested when you would suggest users start considering a more advanced topic like this, and how you see it connected to cost optimization.
Yeah, so ideally in the crawl stage, if all of our customers could think about this in the crawl stage, they'd all be better off right now. Is that reality? Like absolutely not, because we have all those other things we're thinking about in the crawl stage, right? But what this allows us to do is measure that efficiency over time. So all those changes that we've made through crawl and walk, if we could measure those over time and our effect on unit cost, that's how we see
Yeah,
how much more profitable we're becoming, right? And so I'd really like to see more customers doing this. In reality, this is the lowest scoring cloud financial management or FinOps capability that we've
yeah,
measured at AWS. We've assessed 700 different customers, and all of them self-assess this as the worst thing that they do. So it
yeah,
just shows across the board, strategic customers, enterprise customers, down to new customers,
100%.
they all want help with this.
Everyone wants to talk. Everyone talks about how they want it, and then kind of push to come to shove. It's not a simple thing to set up. And yeah, I mean, we have, especially companies that have a lot of fluctuations in costs, like our gaming customers track cost per player hour, and they have huge spikes during tournaments, and it's extremely important for them to get that visibility. But it's not trivial to decide what the right metric is, and set everything up. Um, any questions? Feel free to ask any questions. I'm gonna float one to you, Wade. Jean Latier, great to see you, Jean. Asks about MCP roadmap at AWS. There's many popping up. So I know you gave us before we actually started the webinar. You were telling us about the difference between Q and these new MCPs. So maybe you could just elaborate in a couple sentences to answer Jean's question.
Yeah, thanks for the question, John. So as we mentioned at the beginning, you might have missed this part, but you said it in your question, but we did release an MCP server for our cost management products. And so really excited about that. And what that allows large language models to do is just get more context when they're trying to get information from Cost Explorer or Cost Optimization Hub. In terms of the MCP roadmap, I do see a lot of MCP work internally at AWS here. And so I do anticipate that we're going to be releasing more MCPs. I think it's a very popular time right now. I don't have any things I can share about the specific ones that we're planning to come out with, but I would expect to see more service integration with the billing and cost management one, especially as we continue to release more billing cost management services.
Awesome. Well, that about sums it up in terms of walking through the crawl, walk, and run. We're essentially at time, and so we had, there's so much to pack in here. Maybe we'll have to do a follow-up webinar. Maybe the last thing I'd be interested in hearing from you, Wade, is how you see customers thinking about this ballooning AI spend. Whether it's directly from third-party AI companies or through Bedrock. How are you seeing customers tackle that? You mentioned already allocating it into a cost category. How are you seeing customers tackle it? Any actionable recommendations you have for people that see this ballooning?
Yeah, a couple actionable recommendations. One of them being is the strongest, fastest, best AI model that we're seeing in the news all the time isn't always the one that you need for your specific project, right? There's a lot of optimization we can do around AI about choosing the right model and also token optimization. And so just be thinking about that. That we're driving around Ferraris all the time. Maybe we only need a Honda Civic, right? And so just think about that when you're using those AI models. And then also, I just want people to be thinking about driving action. What is one thing that you can do, maybe that you heard from this webinar, that you can do in the next 2 months to drive change in your environment? Just try to do that over the next couple months. And if you need additional help, reach out to your AWS account team, or we also have partners that can help you as well if you're struggling on where to go next.
Awesome. I'll pass it back to you, Yoav. I know we're at time.
Oh, good. So first of all, thank you, Daniele, and thank you, Wade, for your time. We have a good amount of people listening in. I hope we brought in some good insights. This webinar would be on demand on the Finout website and YouTube channel. If you want more things to learn from AWS, from the Finout integration, if you have more question you're curious about, or just want to learn more, feel free to reach out to us or anyone from the team, and we make sure to create more webinars and to contribute more content to the community. We're open to suggestions. We keep adding new titles, new topics. Yes, there's a lot of AI, there's a lot of cost optimizations, but sky's the limit regarding the abilities for us to contribute new knowledge. And if you want to learn more about a specific subject there's not a lot about, we'll help you do that. Again, thank you for your time, everybody, and have a great day. Goodbye.
Thanks, folks.